join me in welcoming all the Percival Everetts.
Thanks for that nice introduction, and thank you all for having me here. I will be reading from The Water Cure, which is, I'm sorry to say, not terribly upbeat. This novel is written in it's a non sequitur novel. All sections, no section follows one sequentially or logically. So I'm going to jump around some. And I'll start with, this is a story I used to read to my daughter. There was a modest, rather inconspicuous shop on the corner. It was the only shop at the intersection. It was the only occupied corner. The other corners were vacant lots, one full of weeds, one full of piles of cardboard. Then the last one sat an old man on a stump. The old man wore a dusty red jacket and paid no particular attention to anyone, and has no particular significance to this story. On the little shop was a sign that read, "Words." The young girl, the subject of this story, looked at the sign and wondered to herself whether she was reading the word words or merely recognizing it. She imagined that there must be a distinction to be made between the two, but what? She walked inside and the bell on the door announced her. She walked to the counter and addressed the tall woman standing behind it. "Is this a bookstore?" the little girl asked. "It is not." The woman put her hands to her head as if to adjust her hairdo. The little girl looked around, and in fact she saw no books. In double fact, she saw nothing but walls, a door set into the back one, windows into the front, and empty shelves behind the counter. "This is a word shop," the woman said. "Do you have any money with you?" "I have $1," the girl said. "That's enough for a few words anyway. Depends on what you want to say. Some are rather expensive. I don't have any that are free." The little girl was intrigued. She wanted to know what the words would look like, whether they would come in a paper sack or wrapped in a box. "What should I buy?" she asked. "That, of course, depends on what you'd like to say," the woman said again, standing even taller. "But if I could, excuse me, but if I could tell you what I wanted to say, then I'd already have the words I need. Be that as it may, still, you can never have too many words. Make up your mind, little girl." "Excuse me, but do you have a catalog of some kind?" the little girl asked. "Of course. What kind of shop would this be if I didn't have a catalog?" The woman bent down behind the counter and came back with a big red book, and on the cover a red dictionary. "There, that's most of them anyway." Then the little girl noticed a pile of small boxes on the counter, stacked neatly as a pyramid. "What are those?" "We call those grab boxes. There are 4 words in each one. There is some repetition, but only some. But the fun is you never know what you're going to get. And how much a day?" 50 cents a box. I'll take one," the little girl said. She gave the woman her $1 and received her 50 cents change. The woman handed her the box, and it felt so terribly weightless. "It's so light," the little girl said. "Words are like feathers," the woman said, "only cleaner." She sighed as she peered out the window. The little girl took her new box of words out the door and into the sunshine. She couldn't wait to get home, so she tore into them immediately and found nothing. She looked all around, feeling lost and somehow hollow. She was terribly, mightily, and profoundly disappointed. She marched right back into the word shop and said, "This box is empty." "Those are a fine 4 words," the woman said, smiling quite brightly. "You got quite lucky with that box." The astonished little girl stared helplessly for a moment. "There's nothing in my box," she said. "Well, not now," the woman said. "You just now used them. Would you like another grab box? You do have 50 cents left." "Yes, I would." The little girl handed over her 50 cents and marched out just as she had before. And she did the same, tore into the new box. In outrage, she screamed, "This one is too." And she slapped her hand over her mouth, realizing that she'd again let her new words go without so much as a thought. For me, salvation is not a place for comfort, however good that place might feel, but a place of safety, contentment, a place where the physical, emotional, or intellectual that is free of external voices and a couple of internal ones as well. Salvation, it turns out, is a couple of map folds away from serenity. Salvation might keep you alive, but it won't make you happy about it. I used to find serenity in the face of my daughter, but that state went missing, as did she, turned up missing, as it was put, as if a person, a life, an idea can be discovered by the realization of its absence. Lane was 11 years old, a small 11, when she was abducted, and only 2 days older when her small body was found with all the life having turned up missing. She had been too young to truly imagine death, too young to have understood enough of life to cherish it, but old enough to have taught me to do so, the lesson having been given with no fanfare, singing, bells, but quietly, and so in a strange and jarring fashion, like a self-slap to the forehead, as if to say, yes, that's why we're all here. Now, it is as if I have turned around to find the chalkboard erased of all that matters, the only remaining mark somehow indicating the date. Lane had been standing in the front yard of her mother's house, just as she had 1,000 times. There had no doubt been a light, maybe even cool breeze, perhaps a cloud had drifted in front of the sun. Charlotte had seen the child there leaning on her bicycle, and just minutes later the bicycle was there alone, laid on the grass between the uneven sidewalk and the street, that strip of land which could have belonged to the city or to Charlotte, a place where the child had never laid her bicycle before. 20 minutes passed, then another 20 minutes, then another of Charlotte driving slowly and with increasing panic through her neighborhood. She called me from her driveway, her panic working its way into numbness that finally led to the question, what do I do? Call the police, I said. The police, I'll be right there. I did not close my files. I grabbed my keys from my desk, left my wallet and license on the kitchen table, and took the elevator down to my car. I can still feel that haunting, hollow sensation, an ice lands in the back of my stomach, as if I had forgotten to eat. The cavity of my gut quiet and hard. There was a police cruiser in the drive when I pulled up. Charlotte was going over it all again, white sneakers with red stripes, light blue jeans, a darker blue t-shirt, a blue hooded sweatshirt. Blue was her favorite color, she offered nervously, brown skin, a head full of wild dark hair. Charlotte and I had not been close for several years, despite our belief and vocal claim that our split had been amicable. But the child was ours, and when she saw me, she embraced me, and I hugged her back. Physical reconnection punctuated the gravity of the situation. The fear had to find some release, and became an irritation with the policemen who were standing in the driveway instead of scouring the streets. Why aren't you out looking, is what Charlotte said. We are, ma'am, said a sturdy policeman, and we apparently believed him. No one has seen anything. At least they had seen nothing that made them think to remember it. No strange cars, no strange vans, no stranger odd-looking men. And so the long-standing philosophical question was answered for me. If your child screams in the forest and there is no one around to hear her, does she make a sound? Turns out she does not. The police canvassed the darkening neighborhood twice and then again. There was no so-called Amber Alert because there was no car description to release to the public. Charlotte went back into her house, I believe to search for the 1,000th time, and I drove the same pavement until I became the strange and suspicious car the residents might recall. I returned to Charlotte's house that night to find her being comforted by her boyfriend, a nice enough fellow who was in way over his head now. He stood there while fear and familiarity combined to bring Charlotte and me close once more. And yet not really, as none of our concern rightly became for the fear or pain of the other. We wanted only our daughter, more precisely to emphasize the division. She wanted her daughter and I wanted mine. I had to give Buck or Chuck or whatever his name was credit because he hung in there, fetching water and peering out the window and at the idle telephone. He fell asleep in a stuffed chair while Charlotte drank hot tea and I paced. The next day came with far too clear a morning. Charlotte peed with the door open and watched the phone. The police came early to tell us that they had no reason to be there. So early they left, and the day stretched out as a tedious exercise of clock watching. The boyfriend and I drove our separate cars in widening circles of desperation. And though he was in another place altogether, I decided that I liked him and hoped Charlotte would be happy with him, and then realized that all my thinking was an act of mere self-preservative distraction. Early the next morning, a woman came to Charlotte's door. We all saw this as a bad sign, and in fact it was. As the news she delivered was that a girl matching Lane's description had been found in a ravine beside a park by 2 boys and their dog. She had gone into so much detail that it seemed to me about the park that led to the ditch and fed into a concrete drainage canal. And the boys, aged 9 and 10, not brothers but across the street neighbors, but I found myself asking, without even knowing why that I was asking, what kind of dog was it? The joke is from skydivers. Who's crazy enough to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Of course, the answer is clear and easy enough for the thrill, to overcome fear, that sort of thing. But suppose you're not skydiving. Suppose we're flying from Denver to Santa Fe in a Beechcraft. What can you say to me that will make me jump out of this perfectly good airplane? That's where I was as I contemplated how my wife and I would divide the property of our lives, the two houses, the paintings, the library, and all those things. Things shoved out of the open door of a perfectly good airplane, and I along with them, attempting to explain, while trying to strap on my chute in midair, why I am jumping, considering the bewildered looks of friends and family, what family there is, my daughter, and hoping through tangle after strap, that I will get outfitted and lands without too much of a thud on the ground near my reason for jumping. That's why one abandons the good thing. You find the ground where you're tired. Find the ground because you're tired of flying. Because where you've been is fine and where you're going is fine, great even, but it's all in the plane, flying from Denver to Santa Fe, but headed north the really long way to Santa Fe. With plenty of fuel, but still it's not on the ground and not near my reason for jumping. And how will I tell the other person on that plane that it's not her, that she is still wonderful, more beautiful than ever, but that she is not on the ground where I want to be? I will step from the plane and hope to experience that famed thrill of unaided flight, but I will simply be falling at a steady and known rate, but falling, plummeting, past high-flying geese, past particles, dust-encrusted ice, seeds for meteorological events, past anniversaries and birthdays, not one having gone unnoticed, past the presentations of degrees and awards, the miscarriage, the birth, the death, past millions of I love yous and as many you're the only one for me's, past erased insecurities, the shared friends, dreams, nights of silly giggling, and somehow I imagine that I can endure the look on her face as I glance back at the rapidly disappearing airplane. A perfectly good plane. Imagine that I can expect her to understand. I will know this as I near the ground, accelerating at the prescribed 32 feet per second. And once strapped on, will my chute open? Will I be high enough to land without shattering every bone in my body? Will I land in that circle I have painted for myself on the planet? The ground, they will say, who never heard it coming. In this novel, the character kidnaps, abducts the man who might or might not have killed his daughter. Reggie, bo veggie, banana, bo veggie. I could never get that right. How are you this morning or night? You'll never know. Reggie. Let me set my coffee down here. How's it hanging? I just came down for a little chat. Rather, I need an audience. You're game, right? Oh, I made up honey. I was upstairs making up limericks of all things. I decided to come down here and share a few with you. A sip of coffee to wet the old whistle. Or is it wet the old whistle? I can never keep that straight. Not that it matters, a hill of corpses, I mean, they sound the same, don't they? Okay, here's the first one. There once was a man named Reggie, who lived a life wild and quite edgy. He poked the wrong young'un, and now there is no one to save him from becoming a veggie. Not bad, eh? Well, it's good for me. I wish I were more like you. Perhaps I could masturbate to all of this, get off. Another sip of coffee, and here's another one. There was once a man lost their towels, who lived well deep beneath the house. It was fitting that he should be bound so tightly to a board that he hugged like a mouse. Oops. Place reference in that line doesn't matter though. It's not like you'll ever be talking to anyone else for the rest of your life. These last two I'm not so taken with. I hesitate to even read them to you. But what the hell? Where do you have to go? They seem, I don't know, cold, wooden. But you tell me, you're the critic here. Sit. There once was a father grieving, whose child got no love before leaving. No God came to help with the pain that he felt. So he wound up at home before leaving. See, I told you about that a little well. And here's the last one, and then I'll leave you alone for a bit. There once was a man with a daughter who returned home to learn of her slaughter. He found her assailant, became his acquaintance, and slowly did drown him in water. See what a wild legend. So in my novel, A does this, and B responds thusly, causing C to become upset with A, and B believes that A knew all along that C would become upset and was in fact counting on it. So B hates A, but also is greatly disappointed that C has behaved so predictably, and C becomes offended that B is arrogant enough to stand in judgment and sleeps with A. Though neither A nor C have feelings for each other, and A discovers mid-coitus that B is the real object of C's desire, and B wanders in to find A and C in the compromised pose, and in a fit of madness cuts himself in half and becomes two little D's that run around screaming the while, looking to get the F out of there. If I may, I will offer up again the metaphysical distinction between fact and value. At the base of the understanding of this distinction is a perception that values in some way come from individuals and cannot exist in the world, at least not in the world of frogs, car batteries, and coins. If they did, then they would be like rocks, guitar strings, and orthodox devices, and would not be values at all. And so I raised the question of whether it is possible for a statement to be considered a fact, since in fact it is issued by an individual. And compound this with our need to establish the statement as valid before we will consider it as possibly a fact, and so in an evaluative mood. And you can see my problem. Well, one of my problems is, my biggest problem is that I think like this. About the simplest things, but nothing is really simple, is it? The whole fact-value thing was my way of arguing that my wife's claim that giving up drinking would be good for me was not a fact, but a values judgment. Then I added, for effect, that for something else, for effect and for something else, though I don't quite know what, that my desire to drink as an unspoken thing in the world, as an animal sensation, was in fact and not a statement of value. And since the sensation did not depend on the individual for its derivation, then my desire for drink was more real than her assertion that stopping would be beneficial. To this she replied, but your desire has now been articulated, and so it's become a value statement. To which I responded, shut up. We slice, cut, read, cleave, rend, split, tear open the entire body from the anus to the chin. Find a fold of skin on the belly and grab it between the thumb and forefinger. Roll it between the fingers and carefully puncture, pop, pierce the skin. Avoid perforating the gut. Simply, plainly, easily, honestly slip. Open the body all the way down, up to the throat, and down to the tailbone. When you find the sternum and the pelvis, just merely, simply, always simply, cut down to the bone with your knife. When you come to the testicles, don't cut them off. Simply, plainly, easily, honestly, cut the skin between the testicles and leave one testicle attached to each side. Then carve, divide, shiv, cleave, slice down through the hands to separate, divide, dissociate the bugs from each other. It is important that you cut straight down. Once you proportion part of the hands, take the sharp knife out and score the ends. Now you've got them slit from stem to stern. Once this has been accomplished, achieved, realize, locate your meat zone. Cleave through the sternum until the rib cage is open. Then saw through the pelvic belt. Do not perforate the bladder. If you cut it, you'll spray urine all over the best part of the hymen. Keep the saw blade parallel to the bone and cut carefully. Take up the knife again, cut the windpipe just under the chin and grab hold. Separate the smooth muscle tissue holding the entrails from the carcass. Slice the tissue while you pull the windpipe. The entire gut pipe will come easily free and will roll out. Be certain to complete and remove the colon from the bladder, which can sometimes hang up on the pelvic bone. This is a source of bacteria and also heat. So it's very important to do all of this, remove all the entrails. Now the elk is field goods. And it's like this. It's like this, Reggie, nameless one. I am neither impressed nor stirred by the fact that you are afraid of me. That does nothing for me. Fills no gaps, soothes no wounds, as what I want is to have you find me fearful. And I know that this is hard for you to grasp, to get your small, tortured brain around, though I am certain that on some level you are already capable of some sort of understanding, even if you will never be able to articulate it. But there's nothing for me to do as I drive you back along the same highway, letting you catch the same, letting the same cacti mark the passing of time and distance, except to explain whether my attempt is vain or not, the nature of the sublime, or perhaps more correctly, the sublime in nature. And you may choose to listen or not, but you will hear, and you will hear what I want to be, what I am, what I will be, that I will be sublime in your eyes. Even if you don't know it or comprehend it, or comprehend what the fuck I'm talking about. And I want you to take time and with your mind review, go over, take an inventory of your body, realize that there are no external parts missing. You are bleeding from no place. You bear no bruises or other marks. Realize, in other words, that I have left no sign of my presence, no sign of our connection, no sign of my art, my business with you. Realize that you don't know who I am, don't know where you've been, don't know anything. But you do have a vague recollection, one from long ago on a cool night, my face, faint, vague, and ghostly, mere suggestion, like the face of God, perhaps, except, of course, that I exist, maybe. I don't know. I don't want you to fear me, not in the same crass, childish way, because a man who fears in that way is incapable of truly realizing, comprehending the sublime in nature. Just as the man who is a slave to inclination and appetite can have no true appreciation or recognition of beauty. And I say this trying to make it clear that I don't desire for you ever to take flight with the sight, sound, or thought of me, but rather to stand in absolute awe, to then take a step back and dispassionately, soberly, even serenely assess my fury, my power, my might, and I want you to find a perverse and uneasy satisfaction, a strange comfort in your state of terror, a state that should approximate joy but not flight, as I almost want you to find peace in the knowledge of my existence, in the knowledge that if I found you once, I will find you again, almost peace, as I want the terror in your heart to remain pure. I want the terror to wake you in the morning and sleep with you at night, and remind you of the fragility of life, and the thinness of forgiveness and absolution. And I want you to pray to me. Pray that I don't come back, and also that I never leave you. Pray that my might is distant and my confidence somehow stays sated. Pray daily, my friend. Perhaps that will keep me at bay. And remember that I will kill. That is only part of what instills fear. That what chills your blood is, in fact, is that I can give life. That it is my gift to you. Mirror set by mirror, facing mirror, showing mirror, reflecting mirror, etching mirror, casting mirror back and forth and back. With his face at one end, but where? With his face at one end and the mirror upon mirror, taking no energy to work, making reflections that have no end, no other end, just infinite middle, infinite faces that are not his, for him to see. His rough face made smooth, his head half incised by distance again and again, gaze and return, and not a single photon his. His guilty eyes well up, and who cares if the tears that are guilt are true? And there they stand and hang, mirrors all, windows all. My guilt is shameless as it is sincere. My killing is real as it is passionate. My tears as phony as my dear land's promises, black wax slashed. I am a good citizen, patrolling my own borders, and keeping my own peace and nailing my own mirrors into place, even if they are set to cast no reflections of my own. And Sally and Bucky and Art and Charlotte and Charlie and the dead dealers and the woman at the roadside diner populate my dreams as if dreams are mine, forever mine. And the little flycatcher, her color muted, tasteful, darts about or lights nearby, and I know her, have known her, must know her. Her familiar voice, a bridge to my past, a bridge over all this blood, nights of cleaning blood, wiping blood, scrubbing blood, finding blood on sofa pillows, on books in the case, on the spine of the way of all flesh, on the pages of Ulysses, the unsharpened ends of pencils, on the sweater I never wear, dried black in places where no one would ever guess that it is blood. But not my blood, because I have managed to keep all of my blood in its bottle, built at the top against this cap, pressing up into its cap and making me hurt in my cap, while I recall the last breath of the last life that I stole, rightly, righteously, correctly, justifiably, honorably, sinlessly, done with precision and calm, always calm. A true indicator of the rightness of any action, because someone always has to pay. Shoot the ocean if it rises too high, stab the wind if it blows too hard, strangle the night if it falls too dark, but punish someone, something, someplace, somehow, and confess without apology, and confess without concern, and confess because my confession is an admission of righteousness. But hide what I have done, because the night will never fall dark enough, because the little flycatcher doesn't care about my guilt or innocence, only about the blood that stains my nails, the color of her feathers. But with no purity of light, lightness of flight, weightless in the light of day, caring nothing about the questions, I ask only to find the answers. I ask only to find the answers I need. But then there are the other questions. Will my daughter grow older in my dreams? Why do reasonable people entertain the ontological argument? And what kind of God was it? And the answers are no, because they can, and some kind of retreat. Thank you. I'll answer questions if I haven't scared you to death. Yes.
It seems like you've written in all different kinds of genres, and it usually, I come from a newspaper background, and so it seems like everything's packaged, like, oh, this is a mystery writer, this is a... So, did you get any pushback, or when you would, with your agent or your publishers, about, hey, it's easier to put you in this little box if you stick to this kind of...
Well, my agents have always recognized this. I started writing a long time ago. I mean, things were changing, but they weren't the way they are now. And what my little round agent told me, Candida Donadio, was, with her voice deeper than mine, from drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes, she said, "You're never going to make me any money, kid." She said, "So just write what you write." And that's how I feel. It's my art, and I don't think about selling books. Yes.
This question's not intended to be funny, but I fear it might be. When I'm not doing this job, I'm an English teacher, and all my career I've been reading about the philosophical novel. And everyone said it died. And then they say what some of them were that were good before it died. Did it die, and did it ever exist, and do you write them?
I think, of course, they have existed and do exist. I think most of my novels are probably novels of ideas. I'm not a natural storyteller. I start books because usually the same question. I'm fascinated by how we make meaning, how the world means anything to us, how marks on a page can become something that can tell us to get out of a building. So the philosophical novel is, I would make a distinction between that and an academic novel. And I try not to write academic novels because that's where I live, and it's pretty boring in that world. Though I do have some novels set in academia. But I think there are the modernist tradition. I think most novels are born from some philosophical stance. Yes.
You've worked diligently to develop your own authentic voice as a writer. Your other role as a teacher, I teach here, and teaching is not just about relaying information. It's also creating a community that encourages us to add our voices. So how do you find, or what are some effective ways that you have found for you to authentically add your own voice and bring it into your classrooms?
Well, I teach. Majority of my classes are fiction writing classes, and I teach theory as well, and some film. But I'll sort of keep this with the writing right now. What I try to give my students is an opportunity to make what they want to make. I don't believe there are any rules. I'm an anti-craft person. I had a student show up in a workshop once, and she had a list of 13 criteria that had to be filled to complete a novel that someone else had given her. And so I tore it up in front of the class.
Oh.
There are no such things. Fiction is an interesting creature. I was talking to a young man who drove me here yesterday. Poetry is when it has form, is easy to identify a sonnet. It's easy to identify a villanelle or a sestina. And if they don't fit the rules, you say, that's no sonnet, it's got 15 lines. But you can't say that about any work of fiction. You can't say that's no story. It has, and there's nothing for you to say. It's because there are no rules. As long as you can make me believe it, it works. And that's what I try to get my students. And so they become accomplices in a way, trying to find new ways to sort of exploit conventions that they believe exist, but intellectually they're learning do not exist. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, you spoke of encouraging your students to develop their voices as part of the classroom community. How do you authentically add your voice in the community of the classroom?
Well, my voice is there. I don't have to do much. The big thing is for me to not try to influence them by maybe having the occurrence of knowing that. I want them to understand that. Well, my graduate students come to me and say, can you teach me to write a novel? And my answer is, no, I cannot. And it's very simple. I don't know how to write a novel. I've done it 20 times, but I don't know how to do it the next time. And that's what I want them to know, is that every time they go to work, they're reinventing the wheel. It's brand new, and it is for me. So we're in the same place. Yes?
I read American Desert.
And you came anyway.
And I came. When I started, I thought, well, you know, a man was going to commit suicide, it's decapitated, and then his head's sewn back on, and I thought, this is bizarre. I don't know. But he became such a believable character once you delved into his life, you know. And I didn't think it would. I thought, I don't think I'm going to get through it. I thought, I don't think I'm going to get through this book. But I enjoyed it. He was very believable.
Well, it's autobiographical, you know.
That's scary. But I enjoyed it.
Yes?
Do you have any advice for young writers as far as like, do you have like a writing routine? Do you wake up early in the morning, or do you write when you're inspired, or do you write daily?
The first rule is marry money, which I did not do, so I know that you should. There are as many different ways to write as there are writers. Probably good advice is to work diligently every day, but I would be lying to you if I told you that's what I do. If any one of my friends or my kids says, let's watch a movie, I watch a movie. I work will get it done. But you have to take yourself seriously. That's the big thing. No one else will if you don't. So when you take your work seriously, you find time to do it.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna, excuse me, just one second. I know some of the students need to leave 12:45, so why don't you take a moment, get yourself together, and we'll take the
When is it?
We can go back.
Yes.
Someone mentioned autobiographical. I don't know how autobiographical Erasure is, but for personal reasons, I really got involved with Monk's mother's situation with the Alzheimer's. To me, you ended the novel before I was ready for it to be over. Could you maybe elaborate a little more on Monk's mother? I wanted to follow that a little further.
Well, though that character is alarmingly similar to me, it is not autobiographical. Anyway, there's some things that are. My mother does not have Alzheimer's. My father doesn't. My mother would do well to have the excuse of Alzheimer's. But whatever world you've entered in, that's where it's not. My job's over. And,
I know that was the end. I wasn't ready for it.
well, thank you. I kinda like that. Yeah.
When you're delving into books like the one that you read that have really deep and dark themes, how do you get to that place and that viewpoint? And does that at all affect your everyday life, the mindset that you have to be in?
Well, sure. I mean, you find things in you that's scary. This started out as a protest novel, and it is pretty much it's one of the things that it might be is an allegory about the U.S. and war. And the whole idea of revenge. Nobody is satisfied by an act of revenge. The dark places. It's just that's the scary part of this work. You have to entertain. Everything that happens in a book, something in my book comes out of me. I can't blame someone else, so I have to deal with that. What it does allow me to do is to understand that those places exist, and I know I can control them because of that. Why, a lot of writers become alcoholics. That's a cheap drug.
Here's my question. I ask this often. What are you, I mean, I think all writing is some kind of defense or affirmation of something, that's in, some, rebellion, something like that. And I wonder where are you going and why are you doing what you're doing?
I'm not smart enough to answer that. I'm fascinated with the way words and stories mean stuff in the world, and that's all I'm ever doing is exploring. There's plenty of stuff politically and socially that bugs me.
Well, even in terms of literature, where, who are the people besides your books, and what writers are on either side of you?
Well, there are tons. I reread The Way of All Flesh every year. Moby Dick is a great novel. When I was working on, the novel I just completed, it's not out yet, for some reason I was reading Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in Wonderland shows up in this novel as well. Alice in Wonderland and Ulysses, over and over again. Books are like music to me. And when I can read them, they sort of fill the space where music fills the space. So it's I don't think a lot about it. I trained horses for a long time. And, I was just always pleased that a 1,200-pound animal would let me get on his back. That's how I feel about books.
Do you have any guilty pleasures?
Yeah, I love, I never have been able to watch it all the way through, but on those movies on the weekends, like Atomic Twister, or Mega Croc versus Shark. I just like knowing they're on. And I'll watch 10 minutes of it and then start working, but yeah.
Heck, crook.
All right, let's thank Percival Everett.